For first-time listeners and long-time listeners, I'm so thrilled you are here. This podcast is where we build mental fitness, confidence, and self-love without following someone else's blueprint. I'm Lulu, and if you're feeling stuck, anxious, struggling with your worthiness, want more out of life, or curious about all things personal growth, you're in the right place. This podcast is about doing life on your terms, doing the real inner work of building self-love and self-worth from the inside out. These are honest conversations about becoming who you really are, with simple tools that guide you and meet you exactly where you are. No quick fixes, no hacks, no toxic positivity. This is unedited and always from the heart. Today is part 4 of an 8-part series inspired by patterns I kept noticing last year. I saw them in search behavior, in well-being research, in conversations, and in the kinds of questions people were asking themselves, their coaches, their therapists, and also what they were asking AI. Something seemed to have shifted. People stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "Why do I feel this way, even when I'm doing everything right?" I'm here to sit with these questions alongside you, to offer my perspective, to slow down and make meaning of what we're living through together. Before we get going, please share this episode with anyone who is searching, asking questions, and looking for more meaning, more purpose, more insight, more freedom, and joy in their lives. A share takes a few seconds, and it could make a huge difference to someone else who may need to hear this message. And it makes a very big difference to me. So thank you. Last week in part 3, we explored confidence and why it feels so hard even when you're capable. And we looked at how many of us dismiss our own evidence before it has a chance to build into something solid. Today, I'd like to go deeper, because underneath that dismissal, underneath the minimizing and the "it doesn't count" and "anyone could have done that," underneath that there's often a voice, a harsh voice, a voice that speaks to you in ways you would never speak to someone you love. So today's question is this: why am I so hard on myself? Or you might ask it another way: why does being kinder to myself feel so uncomfortable? It's essentially the same question, just expressed differently. Which one lands for you? Here's what I invite you to consider. We are not born with a harsh inner critic. That voice that is constantly in the background, saying hurtful, often cruel things to you. We weren't born with it. Babies don't come into the world thinking, "I'm not good enough." Toddlers don't look in the mirror and criticize their bodies. Young children don't naturally tell themselves they're failures, they're behind, they should be doing better. That harsh voice, the one that is so hard on you, the one that pokes and judges and finds you not being enough, that voice is not your original voice. Your original voice is the voice of love. Self-criticism is learned. It's not who you are. It's something you picked up along the way, probably without knowing it, and you made that voice your own. The discussion we're having today is not about blame. It's not about pointing fingers at your parents, your teachers, your culture, the people who raised you, whoever it was that you picked up that voice from. Not all of them, but very often most of them were doing the best they could. And many of them learned their own patterns of self-criticism the exact same way from the people around them. This discussion is firstly about awareness. Becoming aware that the harsh way you speak to yourself isn't your natural state. It's a learned response. You absorbed it without knowing you were absorbing it, because that's what humans do. We learn from our environment. We pick up things from people we love, the people we want to please, the people who have authority over us, the people who we think know better than us. And we don't pick up these patterns because we're weak or flawed. We pick them up because we're in the process of learning. We're making sense of the world. We're figuring out how to belong, how to be loved, how to be accepted. And sometimes in that process, we learn things that are not good for us. I want to share something personal to help this land for you. For much of my life, I carried a very critical and damaging voice with me about my body. It was all about every aspect of my physical appearance, how I looked. And that voice didn't come from nowhere. My father was exceptionally critical about my body, about how I dressed from a very young age. The comments he made were cruel and pointed. The message, whether he intended or not, was clear. My body was not okay as it was. I needed to be different. I needed to be better. I needed to be less or more, or somehow other than the way I was. And I absorbed all of that, every word. Of course I did. I was a child. I was learning, and I loved my father. I wanted his approval, so I took that critical voice and I made it my own. And here's the important part. I was not aware I was doing it. I was just a child. And for years, I thought that voice was me. I thought I was just someone who needed to be harsh on herself about her body. I thought that's just how I am. That's just how I'm wired. I became aware that this inner voice was very damaging, and I began to explore it. Where did it come from? Why was it there? And through this process of exploration, of going inside, I came to understand it wasn't my voice. It was a learned voice. I had picked it up at such a young age and carried it with me for so long that it felt like mine, but it wasn't. My original voice, the voice I was born with, that voice doesn't speak to me with harshness. That voice is love. Unlearning this took time, a lot of time. It took focus, awareness, and willingness. Awareness was the first step. I had to become aware that the criticism wasn't a fixed part of me. It was a pattern I had learned. And what is learned can be updated, not erased, not fought, not killed off, updated. I didn't have to go to war with that critical voice. I didn't have to hate it or shame myself for having it. That voice had been trying to protect me in its own way. I thought that if I criticized myself first, maybe I could avoid the pain of being criticized by others. I thought that if I stayed vigilant about my flaws, maybe I could fix them before anyone else noticed. And I did this without being consciously aware that I was doing it. Nevertheless, it was misguided protection, but it was still protection. So instead of fighting it, I started thanking it, telling it I no longer needed it, and I asked that voice to leave. And I did this over and over. Sometimes I did it successfully, and a lot of the time it was very messy and at times unsuccessful. But I persisted with kindness and patience towards myself. This is why self-compassion, speaking kinder words to yourself, can feel so uncomfortable and unnatural at first because it's new. That harsh voice has been with you for so long that it feels like home. It feels familiar. It might even feel like the truth. When you try to speak to yourself with kindness, something inside may resist. It might feel fake. It might feel soft or weak. It might feel like you're letting yourself off the hook. It felt all of those things for me. But that discomfort isn't a sign that kindness is wrong for you. It's a sign that kindness is unfamiliar, and there's a difference. Unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means new, and new takes practice. So here's your tiny tool for this week. I call it the update. The next time you notice that harsh voice, the one that criticizes, judges, tells you you're not enough, try this. First, notice it. Become aware that the voice is speaking. This is the most important step. You can't change what you're not aware of. Second, pause. Don't react, don't spiral, don't judge. Don't believe everything it says. Just pause. And third, say thank you. Tell it you no longer need it and ask it to leave. I know this might sound strange or a bit loopy, but that voice has been trying to protect you in its own misguided way. You don't have to agree with it to acknowledge that it was trying to help. So just a simple, quiet, internal thank you. I no longer need you. Please leave. And fourth, choose something kinder. You don't have to find the kindest thought you've ever thought. You don't have to leap to, I love myself completely. Just something slightly kinder than what the harsh voice told you. A small update. If the harsh voice says, you're such a bloody idiot, the update might be, that was a mistake. I'm allowed to make mistakes. That is how I learn. If that harsh voice says, you'll never get this right, the update might be, this is hard, and I'm figuring out as I go. I will work it out. If that critical voice says, look at you, you're such a mess, the update might be, I'm having a rough moment, and that's okay. The update doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be kinder. That's it. That's the practice. Become aware, pause, say thank you, I no longer need you, please leave, then choose kinder words. Here's what I'd like you to remember. You were not born with a harsh inner critic. That voice is learned. It's not who you are. It's something you picked up along the way, probably from people who picked it up the same way you did. This is about awareness, not blame. And once you have awareness, you have choice. You don't have to fight that voice or kill it off. You can just thank it for trying to protect you and then update it. Choose something kinder. Just a little kinder. And if kindness feels uncomfortable at first, remember that is a perfectly normal response. It's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're doing something new. Your original voice is love. Everything else is just something you learned. And what's learned can be updated. Next week, in part 5, we're exploring exhaustion. Specifically, why you might feel so tired all the time, even when you're doing everything right. Because once you start being kinder to yourself, once you stop the constant internal fight, you might notice just how tired you really are. And that tiredness isn't weakness. It might be the most important signal your body is sending you. But that's our discussion for next week. For today, just notice the voice inside, and when it's harsh, try the update. You can watch this episode on my YouTube channel or check out my shorts, which are bite-sized tools to help you build mental fitness one small step at a time. And please hit subscribe while you're there and share this episode with someone who is harder on themselves than they would ever be to anyone else. Share it with someone whose mental health might benefit from hearing that the harsh voice inside them isn't theirs. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, with deep compassion for every harsh word you've ever spoken to yourself, this comes straight from my heart to yours. I'll see you next week for part 5.